A pleasant day to all of you. This is the presentation of our group. The discussion will only cover the first three topics, which are the Renaissance, the Medici family, and Petrarch, the father of humanism.
For and foremost, I would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Mawel Abdon, Miss Sunshine Aborde, Miss Lisel Ann Araojo, Miss Trexie Bacalia, Miss Colin Bautista, and Miss Kristen May Brusa.
So now, let's start the discussion.
For Renaissance, me, Mawel Abdon, and Miss Sunshine Aborde will discuss how the Renaissance started. What does Renaissance means? Renaissance. Renaissance is a French word meaning rebirth, or new, or second birth. It refers to a period in European civilization that was marked by a revival of classical learning and wisdom. The Renaissance saw many contributions to different fields, including new scientific laws, new forms of art and architecture, and new religious and political ideas. How the Renaissance started? Renaissance began in Italy, the birthplace of Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the post-republic period of ancient Rome. Following the fall of the empire in the 4th century and the subsequent Dark Ages, the incredible art and ideas of Roman times was temporarily lost. They were later rediscovered in Italy in around the 12th century, leading to the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period in European history from roughly the 14th to the 17th century, regarded as the cultural bridge between the Middle Ages and modern history. It started as a culture movement in Italy in the late medieval period and later spread to the rest of Europe, marking the beginning of the early modern age. The Renaissance is the value of education, particularly in humanities. The catalyst for the classical revival was the belief that one could realize his or her full humanity only through classical education. This rebirth asserted the superiority of ancient Greco-Roman creative and intellectual contribution. During the Renaissance era, the Roman Catholic Church faced numerous dissenters to its authority who were reacting to corruption with the clergy. A series of popular heretical movements emerged proposing to do away with the institutional church. The Protestant Reformation challenged the doctrine of papal infallibility and rejected the Catholic Church as necessary intermediary between the faithful and God. However, disagreements among Protestants caused multiple sects to form. The Renaissance period was a busy time of exploration and cultural exchange that resulted from vast improvements in trade and communication. For further discussion, let Ms. Aborde discuss more. Thank you.
Who is Johannes Gutenberg? Johannes Gutenberg was a German inventor, printer, publisher, and goldsmith who introduced printing to Europe with his mechanical movable type printing press. Si Johannes ang nag-produce ng libro sa Europe at siya din ang nag-imprenta ng mga sagradong libro na mayroong movable metal type. Is printing press. Printing press was invented by German Johannes Gutenberg in 1448. Has been called one of the most important inventions in the history of humankind. Ang nasabing invention ni Johannes na printing press ay binubuo ng metal alloy base block na mayroong mga titik at simbolo na madaling isaayos at malagyan ng tinta. Ang printing press ay madali ding mag-imprenta ng mga teksto na may magandang kalidad, taliwas sa mga naunang paraan ng pag-imprenta ng mga Chinese. Bago pa man mabuo ang printing press ni Johannes, ang mga libro noon ay ginagawang manong-manong sulat kamay at mabibili lang ito ng mga mayayaman at makapangyarihang tao. Spanish Golden Age is a period of flourishing in arts and literature in Spain. O gintong edad ay isang panahon sa larangan ng sining. Ang terminong nagmula sa mga Griego at Romanong poets na ginamit ito upang sumangguni sa isang oras. Florence. Florence was the capital of Italy's Tuscanese region, and Renaissance started in Florence, Italy, which is a place with a rich cultural history. Sinasabi lang dito na ang Florence ang may maunlad na sentro ng pangkalakalan na may sapat na kayamanan, kalayaan at kagustuhan.
The Medici family of Florence, Italy. The Medici family ruled the city of Florence throughout the Renaissance. They had a major influence on the growth of the Italian Renaissance through their patronage of the arts and humanism. The Medici family is one of the most powerful and influential groups in European history. It began around the 12th century, when family members from the Tuscan village of Cafagolio immigrated to Florence. The Medicis rose to become of the most important families in Florence. Let's proceed to the family members of the Medici family. Sino-sino nga ba ang mga ito? First, we have Giovanni de' Medici, founder of the influential Medici Bank. He had two sons who would go on to be the head of the senior and junior branch of the Medici. His eldest son is Cosimo de' Medici, was Lord of Florence for 30 years, from 1434 to 1464. He had a son named Piero, nicknamed the Gauti, Lord of Florence from 1464 to 1469. Piero had also two sons. He was Lorenzo de' Medici, the Magnificent, considered to be the most influential Medici. He was a writer, a poet, and a patron. He ruled from 1469 until his death in 1942. Lorenzo's younger brother was Giuliano, the handsome, sporty, golden boy. Giuliano was murdered in Florence Cathedral. Giuliano had a son named Julio de' Medici, who would go on to become Pope Clement VII, the second Medici Pope who ruled from 1523 to 1534. He is often considered as the most unfortunate of the popes due to the succession of political, military, and religious struggle that marked his reign. Now we have Ippolito de' Medici, the illegitimate son of Giuliano, Duke of Numerus. He ruled Florence from 1523 to 1527. Back to Piero. Piero had a son named Lorenzo II. He ruled the Florence from 1516 to 15. Let's proceed to Catherine de' Medici, Lorenzo's daughter. She became the Queen of France and married to the future King Henry II of France, whose arranged Pope Clement VII. Catherine's father died after she was born, leaving her to be raised by her cousins instead. Regardless of her success, she was one of the most powerful women in the 16th century. Now we have Alessandro de' Medici, nicknamed the Moor, Catherine's half-brother. Due to his dark complexion, he reigned as Duke of Florence from 1532 until the assassination in 1537. His untimely death caused the Duchy of Florence to pass to the family of Junior's branch. Now, we have here the four popes. The first one, Pope Leo X. He was not only the head of the Christian Church, but also the temporal ruler of the Papal States and head of the Medici family that ruled the Florentine Republic. The second pope, Pope Clement VII. He was head of the Catholic Church and ruler of the Papal States from November 19, 1523 to his death on September 25, 1534. He also forbade the persecution of Jews in Rome and ordered the Inquisition to leave them alone. The third pope, Pope Pius IV. He also head of the Catholic Church and ruled the Papal States from December 25, 1559 to his death in 1565. He initiated a number of building projects in Rome, including one to improve the water supply. Lastly, Pope Leo XI, also known as Alessandro Ottaviano de' Medici, was head of Catholic Church and ruled the Papal States from April 1, 1605 to his death April 27, 1605. His pontificate is one of the briefest in history, having lasted under a month. He was from the prominent house of Medici originating from Florence. Here are some facts about the Medici family. They were the wealthiest family in the 15th century. Some members of the Medici family became popes. They had their own alchemists, their own mathematician. They built the Uffizi as their offices. May I call Miss Lizelle Araujo? Please continue.
Thank you, Miss Trixie Bacalya. Again, my name is Lizalan Araujo, and I will be discussing about the fall of Medici family. In 1737 is the ending of family dynasty. The last ruler, Gian Gaston, died without a male heir. He is the seventh family member to save a Grand Duke of Tuscany. The Medici, during their rule of Florence in the 15th century, did much influence the Renaissance and to enable great artists, humanities, and writers to produce their works that have been influential down the centuries. The Medici are most famous for patronage of the arts. They earned the nickname Godfathers of the Renaissance. Patronage is where a wealthy person or family sponsors artists. They would pay artists commission for major works of art. The patronage had a huge impact on the Renaissance, allowing artists to focus on their work without having worry about money. The famous artists Medici support include Michelangelo when he was a young teenager studying at the Academic of San Marco. This mixture of quick skills and talent charmed Lorenzo, so he invited the young artist to live in his palace from 1490 to 1492. There, Michelangelo studied under the great Renaissance artist Donatello. He lived alongside Lorenzo's sons, the future Pope Leo X and Pope Clement VII, who would commission his work for their papal state in the future. Next is Michelangelo's David, a rebellion against the Medici family. The statue of David was originally commissioned by the Artedellalian in 1501 to be placed in the Cathedral of Florence. The Medici family had been exiled since 1494 due to political losses and would return later in 1512. David's perfect Renaissance contrapposto and affiliation makes him one of the greatest Renaissance highlights today. The next artist is Raphael, who worked in the Vatican. Pope Leo X was Raphael's greatest commissioner. He hired him to do a set of 10 tapestries intended for the lower walls of the Sistine Chapel. They illustrated the Acts of the Apostles and can now be seen in the Pinacoteca Vaticana in the Rome. Donatello made statues symbolic traits. Donatello effectively captured the core values of Florence and the Medici family through his work. Next one is Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo studied in their network. Leonardo da Vinci didn't have as strong as patronage by the Medici family as other artists, but he did begin his education through their network. The San Lorenzo Church was rebuilt by Filippo Brunelleschi in 1419, his first project in Florence. It features a rough-hewn exterior which was supposed to be covered by a spectacular facade by Michelangelo, but due to lack of funds and other complications, the decorative covering was never added. This cathedral is the greatest masterpiece of Michelangelo in Florence. Medici didn't just support the arts and architecture, they also support science. They support the famous scientist Galileo Galilei in his scientific effort. Galileo also works a tutor for the Medici's children. Galileo Galilei was the tutor of Cosimo the First de' Medici, a Grand Duke of Tuscany in 1610. He published The Starry Messenger, where he described recent discoveries he made through a telescope. In it, he noted that Jupiter had moons, naming them the Medicean stars. Whether you go in Florence, you can see the remnants of the infamous Medici family. Everywhere you look, you can see their family insignia and the art that they brought to this truly tremendous city. This family ruled the city for centuries, overcoming adversity from all sides. So now may I call Miss Colleen Bautista to report about Petrarch, the father of humanism.
Good day, everyone. I am Princess Colleen D. Bautista, reporting from Group 1. Today, let us talk about Petrarch, the father of humanism. So without further ado, let's dig into it. First, who is Petrarch?
Petrarch, or Francesco Petrarca, is an Italian scholar, poet, and humanist whose poems addressed to Laura,
An idealized beloved contributed to the Renaissance flowering of lyric poetry. Francesco Petrarca, whose Englishized name is Petrarch, was born on July 20, 1304, in Arezzo, Tuscany, now Italy. With his family, he moved to Avignon, France, as a child. In France, Petrarch studied law as his father had wished. However, his passion was for literature, particularly that of ancient Greece and Rome. After his father's death in 1326, Petrarch left law to focus on the classics. Let us know more about Laura. Laura is the love of Petrarch's life. However, her true identity remains a mystery because the poet never shared her last name. Over the years, opinions have been expressed that Laura is not a person, and the name is a play on words. However, there is enough evidence to refute this. They show that Laura exists and that she is Laura de Noves, who was born in 1310. She is married to Count Duc de Sade when she was 15 years old. He first saw her in the church of Saint Clare at Avignon in April 6, 1327. During the Eastern liturgy, and falls in love with her at first sight. He is captivated by her beauty, which haunt him for the rest of his life. He loved her so much to the point that he created more than 300 sonnets dedicated to her. From this love, there springs the work for which he is most celebrated, the Italian poems Rhyme, which he affected to despise as mere trifles in the vulgar tongue, but which he collected and revised throughout his life. Petrarch became a cleric, a religious official or member of the clergy, making him eligible for ecclesiastic postings, which supported him as he pursued his interest in ancient literature. Traveling as a diplomatic envoy for the church, he was also able to search for forgotten classical texts. Petrarch's inquiring mind and love of classical authors led him to travel, visiting men of learning and searching monastic libraries for classical manuscripts. He was regarded as the greatest scholar of his age. Petrarch's sonnets were admired and imitated throughout Europe during the Renaissance and became a model for lyrical poetry. He is also known for being the first to develop the concept of the Dark Ages, which most modern scholars now find inaccurate and misleading. In 1341, he became an Italian celebrity when he was crowned as the Poet Laureate, or official state poet of Rome. He was the first person to receive this title since the Roman Empire. His career in the church did not allow him to marry, but he is believed to have fathered 2 children by a woman or women unknown to posterity. A son, Giovanni, was born in 1337, and a daughter, Francesca, was born in 1343. He later legitimized both. Giovanni died because of plague, while Francesca married Francescuolo da Brozano, who was later named executor of Petrarch's will that same year. Let us know why Petrarch is known as the father of humanism. Petrarch is often regarded as the father of humanism because he helped popularize the classical world in literature study. He rediscovered many manuscripts in monasteries and had Greek works translated to Latin so that they could be more readily read and studied. That is the end of my discussion. I hope you learned something. The next reporter will be Miss Brusa. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Christine May Brusa, and I am going to discuss today the works of Petrarch. We already know who is Petrarch, but we don't know yet his works. So now, we should prepare ourselves for this another discussion. So let me introduce to you some of his famous works. Number 1 is Canzoniere. So ano nga ba ang Canzoniere? Canzoniere is also known as the Rhymes Verse, but originally titled Rerum Vulgarium Fragmenta, is a collection of poems by Petrarch. The second one is Trionfi, also known as a Triumph, a 14th century Italian series of poems, written by one and only Petrarch in the Tuscan language. Number 3 is Secretum Meum, a trilogy of dialogues in Latin written by Petrarch sometime from 1347 to 1353. Next is De Viris Illustribus, is an unfinished collection of biographies written in Latin by the 14th century. Number 5 is De Vita Solitaria, or The Life of Solitude, is a philosophical treatise composed in Latin and written between 1346 and 1356. And last is De Remedis Etriusque Fortunae, also a collection of 254 Latin dialogues written by the humanist Francesco Petrarca. So, bukod sa mga naisulat niyang poems na naging sikat noong kapanahunan niya, hanggang ngayon ay mayroon din siyang mga naipalimbag sa mga sulatin patungkol sa mga sikat na tao, kagaya ni na Cicero at Virgil. At isa pa sa mga sumikat na poems ni Petrarch ay ang kanyang tula para sa kanyang pinakamamahal na si Laura.